A debate is well underway in the House of Representatives over the impeachment of US President Donald Trump. Speaker Nancy Pelosi addressed the House ahead of an historic vote later this morning that will likely see formal charges approved against him. Ms. Pelosi made clear to politicians that it is their job to protect the Constitution as she formally opened proceedings.
Our founders' vision of a republic is under threat from actions from the White House. That is why today, as Speaker of the House, I solemnly and sadly open the debate on the impeachment of the President of the United States. If we do not act now, we would be derelict in our duty. It is tragic that the President's reckless actions make impeachment necessary. He gave us no choice.
She also spoke of the damage caused by his dealings with Ukraine as 2 articles of impeachment are considered. He's accused of abusing his power for political gain and obstructing Congress.
What we are discussing today is the established fact that the President, again, violated the Constitution. It is a matter of fact that the President is, again, an ongoing threat to our national security. And the testimony of decorated war heroes, distinguished diplomats, and patriotic career public servants, some of the President's own appointees over the past weeks, have told us this.
The debate is expected to last several hours before President Trump is a step closer to becoming the 3rd leader to be removed from office in the country's history. But as CNN reporter Karina Kafer explains, the feeling in the House, that's not quite right. It wouldn't be removed from office. That is up to the Senate and unlikely to pass. But we have that full explanation for our colleagues at CNN.
OK, let's turn our attention to the state of play in the Congress. First of all, the House of Representatives, just to remind you of where things are, there is a majority for the Democrats in the House. A tally by the Associated Press has already found that a majority of the House will vote in favour of the impeachment, and that's all that is needed, as you can see there, a basic majority in the House to get to the Senate. This is where it gets difficult for the Democrats, though, because, as we have mentioned, reported over many days, the Republicans have a majority in the Senate. And with the second phase of an impeachment vote, it would need 2/3 of the Senate to succeed to have the President thrown from office. That is not going to happen. Let's look at what next for President Trump in terms of how this plays out. Next, the impeachment trial moves to the Senate, as we said earlier, with those numbers. That vote won't succeed. It's expected early next year. A conviction requires 2/3 majority. Senate to vote in open session, almost like a jury in a trial, with the prosecutors being this case being made, these articles of impeachment, out of the House. And President Trump will govern throughout the trial. And all of this in the context of the start of the 2020 presidential election year. Now, 2 presidents have been impeached before. Bill Clinton was impeached. He was acquitted by the Senate in February 1999. The Senate voted 45 to convict, 55 to acquit Bill Clinton on the first article that was put against him. The second article, it was 50-50 in the Senate. But as you could see on both articles against Bill Clinton in the late 1990s, there was nowhere near 2/3. The only other president to be impeached was Andrew Johnson in 1868. Richard Nixon resigned before he was impeached, so that is, that was heading in that direction, but he resigned before that happened. Impeachment failed with Andrew Johnson back in the 1860s. It failed to gain that 2/3 majority in the Senate. So only 2 presidents have been impeached in American history. So it is an historic day in Washington. Here's CNN reporter Karen Kafer.
This morning, they spent their time debating the rules of the debate around the articles of impeachment, and now they are about halfway through a 6-hour window that was settled upon for Democrats and Republicans with equal time to debate those 2 articles of impeachment. Remember, it is an allegation of abuse of power and also obstruction of Congress. Those will be the 2 articles of impeachment that these members will be voting on at some point later this evening. And so it has been a back and forth between the Democrats and Republicans. some familiar faces from the House Judiciary Committee that we've seen throughout this process. Jerry Nadler of New York on the Democratic side, Doug Collins, the Republican from Georgia, on the other side, kind of shepherding members through their statements as they have a final say before the House takes this very important vote in a matter of hours. This is a very unique day here on Capitol Hill. You've had so many members of Congress go through the House of Representatives and the Senate and never once participate in impeachment proceedings. The first one took place back in the 1860s, so we went about 80 years before, as the U.S., as a country, before we used impeachment for the first time. It wouldn't come back again for another 110 years with Nixon in the 70s, and then, of course, about 20 years ago with President Clinton. So there are just a few members in this House of Representatives who have been in this process twice. They find themselves on the opposite side this time. They were defending President Clinton, a Democrat, the last time, and now they find themselves seeking to impeach President Trump, a Republican. So some interesting dynamics there. So many of the members in both parties noting a sadness of this day, a certain solemnity about this day, but of course their reasons for feeling those emotions are very different, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican.
Let's go live to Capitol Hill in Washington. Fox News reporter Lauren Blanchard joins us. Lauren, as we've mentioned, this is an historic day. Only twice before, once in the 1860s, once in the 1990s, has a president been impeached.
Yeah, good morning to you, Annalise and Kieran, and good evening from here in Washington. We are now on hour 5 of this debate, which has been going on in the House. It is only expected to go about 6 hours, so we could be seeing this vote coming up very soon. And you've heard those lawmakers talking all day about what a historic day this is. If you're a Republican, you're saying this is historic because they say Democrats are setting a dangerous precedent, because they say if this is what President Trump can be impeached for, then any president can be impeached for literally anything. Now, if you're a Democrat, you're saying this is a historic day because they say this is not a situation they would like to be in. This is not something they wish they had to do, but they feel it is their constitutional duty to do so. So we're looking at about 1 more hour of debate in the House. Then we are looking at a series of votes. One of those votes, or both of those votes, are going to be on this 2 articles of impeachment, obstruction of Congress and abuse of power. And I'll note they only have to pass one of those articles for the president to be impeached. Democrats are hoping they'll be able to pass both, but it's only going to take 1 article of impeachment to impeach the president. That would put him in the history books as the 3rd U.S. president to ever be impeached. And then once it goes over to the Senate, that is where President Trump is likely to be acquitted. The Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, has already said he's an impartial juror. He doesn't think the president will be removed from office. And since Republicans have a majority over there, it's not likely to happen.
And it seems like President Trump isn't sticking around the Capitol. He's been pretty active on Twitter, but it seems like he's going to a rally to meet with his supporters.
Well, Annalise, so the White House told us the president had a busy day. He wasn't going to be sitting in front of a TV watching this debate. We know he saw at least some of it because we saw some very angry tweets from him in all caps. He called it an assault on America, an assault on the Republican Party. Right now, the president has just left the White House. He's taking Marine One over to Air Force One. That's, his presidential plane. He will take to Michigan, where he is going to be holding a rally at basically the exact same time that this impeachment vote is going to be going on. So we're not sure yet if the president will be technically impeached while he's on stage, whether he'll find out at that minute or if he'll find out after. But you have to imagine the White House is all but certain that the president will be impeached, just given the fact that there is a Democratic majority in this House, which is going to be taking this vote somewhere in the next 2 or 3 hours.
Lauren Blanchard from Fox News in Washington, thanks so much. A big